This is Paul Schneiderman on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. This is the 17th edition of Sports and Stuff. Today, as my special guest, I have former college basketball star, an NBA player, and also a former member of the Seattle Supersonics, Zaid Abdul-Aziz. I want to give a little background here about you, Zaid, and my show customarily starts with a little introduction of my guest. Zaid is a father and husband. Zaid is a New York City native, Iowa State basketball star, two-time All-American Iowa State. Zaid was selected for the U.S. Olympic team in 1968. Zaid played about 10 seasons in the NBA, including a couple years here in Seattle for the late Seattle Supersonics. Zaid is the author of a terrific 2006 autobiography, Darkness to Sunlight, The Lifelong Journey of Zaid Abdul-Aziz, Don Smith. The foreword of this terrific book is written by NBA legend Oscar Robertson. I have read the book. I recommend Zaid's autobiography to listeners. The book goes way beyond sports. It's a very human book that hits on a lot of subjects. Today we're going to learn more about Zaid's career, his life. We're going to discuss his book, and we'll get some thoughts from Zaid about subjects within and outside the world of sports. Zaid, first of all, thank you for coming on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Well, thank you, Paul. I'm really happy to be here, and it's really amazing that I know you as a friend, but I didn't know you loved basketball so much, especially the Sonics. So it's kind of sentimental to me that that you love the Sonics so much, a team that we lost some years ago.
Well, Zaid, I appreciate that. We've been friends now for over a decade, and I'm really happy to have you join me. And I have been a sports fan, and it's been fun to have this show and have some terrific guests such as you. Zaid, I want to start a little bit about your background. And I know you grew up in the Brooklyn borough of New York City, and you had a very interesting and challenging childhood. I don't want to give away everything about your book. I don't want to be one of those book reviewers that gives away the whole book. I don't want to do that. Well. But can you tell us a little bit about growing up in Brooklyn in the 1950s and 60s?
Well, it was just amazing. Many parts of New York City, they had certain gangs, and I would say at a radius of maybe 5 blocks by 5 blocks, it was a gang. And you had to be a member of that gang even to get along, to do anything. And that's what I caught myself getting into at the age of, 12 or 13 years old.
And I want to ask you a little bit more about, Zaid, about what you overcame as a kid growing up in New York City. But I believe you also overcame a speech impediment?
Yes, I had a speech impediment. And the only person that knew what I was saying was my sister. So the school, they would call my sister and say, Beverly, we don't understand what your brother's talking about. Can you come over to the school and talk, find out, tell us what he's saying? So she would come over and I would go, I want to go Scoovies. And she would say, what's that? I said, I want to go Scoovies. So then my sister says, oh, you don't know that? She said to the teachers and the principal, well, you know what he wants? He said he wants to go to the movies.
Okay. Zaid, by the way, when you say that you had a speech impediment, it's hard for me to believe that because I've had so many conversations with you for over a decade. I don't see any signs of it.
Well, sometimes, things could be psychological. I guess it was something I had to grow out of. And that's why there's a lot of kids who grew up in New York City, they gave up on those kids and because they had a speech impediment or, a different type of, problem, and people gave up on them. But my sister never gave up on me, and I think that's one of the reasons I was able to overcome the speech impediment.
Really interesting, Zaid. I knew a little bit about how you overcame it, but I didn't know all those details. Zaid, again, I don't want to give away everything in your book because I want the listeners to read it, but there's an interesting story how you almost went to prison as a teenager, but you ended up being placed on probation, and being placed on probation rather than prison really affected your life, didn't it?
Yes, it did. That's why I tell people you have to be careful of your friends, who you hang out with, because if you don't know who you're hanging out with, the law is not very forgiving if you're arrested with that person. That's what happened to me. I was with these two guys. They were bad guys. I was a basketball player, and I guess it was just peer pressure. I was with them one night. A guy went up and did a burglary. He hit a person, and they said I was the one who did it. I wasn't even close to the scene of the crime. I was about 5 blocks away at a playground, but they arrested me and another guy, and they said we did it. We had no bail, and I was in prison for 3 months.
And Zaid, based on what I read in your book, if you had gone to prison for a couple of years, you may have never gone to Iowa State University, right?
Of course. When I came out of prison, I just couldn't believe that I got out, because I was facing 4 felonies, and each felony was 15 years. So 4 times 15 is 60 years. That's what I was facing at Rikers Island Penitentiary, and I had a clean record. And my dad was a police officer, and he kind of helped me get through that very trying time.
Fascinating story. This is Paul Schneiderman on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with my special guest, Zaid Abdul-Aziz. Zaid, you were a very top-notch high school basketball player in New York City, and you went to Ames, Iowa, and attended Iowa State University. What was it like, Zaid, for an African-American kid from Brooklyn going to Ames, Iowa in that era?
Well, in the beginning, it was very difficult, and everybody has to come out of their threshold and start to integrate with other people is the lesson I learned. Because when I came from Brooklyn, it was 99% black, and I went to a school that was 98% white. So I had to adapt, and to culturally be around things I never knew existed in the black world, such as some of the music that they played, Hermits. And I love the Beatles, don't get me wrong, but I was really used to the doo-wop sound, the Motown sound. So it was quite different. And I did experience some racism. But as I grew up, I found that the racism is only a lack of knowledge. So I forgave everybody that I felt that they were racist against me.
A lot of truth to that, say that a lot of bigotry and racism is lack of knowledge. But say, when you were growing up in Brooklyn, though, I mean, you were around Italian communities, Jewish communities. It wasn't all black in Brooklyn, though, by any means, was it?
No, back then everybody had a respect for each other. You had the Irish community, the Jewish community, the black community, Puerto Rican, sure. And we had boundaries, and we respected one another, even though we did fight each other from time to time. But what else are you going to do if it's 90 degrees in the summertime? And you have nothing to do, and you start having fights among yourselves. People
start to unleash a little bit. Well, Zaid, you had a very prominent career at Iowa State University, 2-time All-American. I'm going to get to a little bit more about your basketball career in a minute, but I want to ask you about something else. And you obviously have a perspective as a college basketball player. Today in an interview, Commissioner Adam Silver came out and said that he's open to the idea of college basketball players being paid. What's your take on that subject, Zaid?
Whoa, wow, that's a tough one. I mean, in respect to everything that's going on with these NCAA investigations, FBI investigations and stuff, I think if that's going to solve the problem, then why not?
So you think there could be some system set up to pay college athletes then?
Yeah, but I don't know how. So Adam Silver has a lot of work to do in trying to see see how you're going to do that, because saying it is one thing and doing it is another.
Implementing it could be challenging with Title IX issues and all that stuff as well.
Exactly.
It was interesting, though, that the pro sports commissioner came out with that in support of that general idea today. Okay, Zaid, you were the number 5 draft pick in the 1968 draft. As I mentioned earlier, you had a prominent approximate 10-year NBA career. You played for 6 franchises. There was no charter planes in those days for teams, was there?
No, we went commercial. We went with everybody else on the plane, and it was tough. We played basketball because we loved it, and today that's why basketball today, NBA basketball, is kind of confusing to me, because it's not the same as I knew way back in the day.
You guys were a little more blue collar, weren't you?
Oh yeah. We like I said, we loved the game. We played it, and we did what the coach told us to do.
Different era.
But today there's a hierarchy, and sometimes a player can go over the coach's head, go to the general manager, and fire that coach. We didn't do that back in my day.
Paul Schneiderman on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with my special guest, Zaid Abdul-Aziz. Zaid, I could talk to you for hours about your long NBA career, but I want to ask you a little bit about certain questions about your career. And you mentioned in your book that you thought the Sonics owner, Sam Schulman, was a good NBA owner. What was so good about Sam as a sports owner?
Well, Sam, let me give you a perfect example.
Okay.
One time I was over by the Weston Hotel. So I'm walking across the street, and I hear somebody go, Don! And I look across the street, and my eyes are not that good to begin with, but I looked across the street, I saw this kind of gray man, short man, and I kept looking, and I said, that's Sam Schulman. Who's he calling? So he was calling me, Don! So he says, come on, have dinner with me. So I went over to the Weston Hotel, and me and Sam Schulman had dinner.
And you were a player on his team at that time?
Yeah, I was a player on his team. So he had no ego. Of course, he was a businessman, but he was an open-minded guy. That's why Spencer loved him so much, Spencer Haywood, because him and Spencer, they took on the NBA and they won.
Well, I may be asking about that whole case in a couple minutes if I have some time. Well, interesting story. You don't hear about players liking sports owners that much, but in your book you wrote some favorable things about Sam Schulman.
Yeah.
Zaid, you played for the Sonics. You had, I think, 2 stints playing for the Sonics in the 1970s.
Yes.
And this was before the Mariners and Seahawks came to town.
Right.
For you, Zaid, was Seattle a little bit between Ames, Iowa, and New York City?
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I would say right in between. I brought my sister out here, and I moved her to Bellevue, and she said, she's from Brooklyn like me, but she said she could hear the grass grow. And she ran back to Brooklyn, so she didn't like it here at all. But Seattle to me is a very nice city. It doesn't snow that much. I mean, we had about 2 inches of snow this winter, and today was 60 degrees. So you can't find too many cities like that with very little snow. I mean, they had a blizzard in New York just the last couple of days. They had I think 8 feet of snow. So
you still got that Brooklyn accent, Zay, a little bit going.
Yeah.
By the way.
Well, it comes out now and then, but when I go back into my memories of things, it comes out Brooklyn.
Paul Schneiderman on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with Zaid Abdul-Aziz. Zaid, when you played in the NBA, the American Basketball Association was around in those days. The ABA had a little bit of a following in the 1970s. Did you ever consider playing the ABA?
Not really. I got a few letters from ABA teams, when I was an All-American at Iowa State, and a lot of them knew I would be a number 1 pick, and they wanted me to go to them. I think the New York, what's the name of that team? New Jersey?
New York Nets.
New York Nets, that's right. They offered me, they said they wanted me to be a member of the ABA, but I just wanted to be an NBA player.
The ABA had that great red and white ball, though.
Exactly. It was too circus to me. So.
Too circus. That's funny. Zaid, I know you've worked as a chemical dependency counselor.
Yes.
Throughout your career, and there was a perception, and of course perceptions aren't always reality, but there was a perception there was a lot of drugs in the NBA in the 1970s. Did that problem or issue play a role in your decision to become a chemical dependency counselor?
No. It was back in Brooklyn. Most of the guys I grew up with, they became heroin addicts. And so when I said to myself, I wanted to do something to remember them and to help those other people who came, who came after me, came before me, and to try to stop the prevalence of heroin addiction, opiate addiction. Even today, like West Virginia, they have a massive epidemic of heroin, and also Ohio. So, but what I started finding out when I would tell people I'm a chemical dependency professional, they would say, "Oh, he used." No, I've never used in my life. I smoked marijuana when I was a kid,
right,
but I've never used any hard drugs like heroin or cocaine or any of those. So that's what made me kind of retire, because I didn't want to associate my name with drug use. And so if you had chemical dependency professional, or you're just going to just imply that I used. And it's something I had to get over.
Well, I don't think that's fair because there's a lot of chemical dependency counselors who never use drugs themselves. So
Exactly.
I think that's just a stereotype, perhaps.
Exactly. It's a big stereotype, but it was something I had to work through, and I worked through it when I was writing my book because I changed direction. I changed my career. I went from chemical dependency to becoming a writer.
Yeah, you're a good writer too, Zaid. Zaid, you played for, I believe, 6 NBA teams in 6 different cities. I hope I got that right. And I remember you told me once, Zaid, when you and I were chatting, you really liked playing in Buffalo. Was Buffalo your favorite NBA city you played in?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
My favorite NBA city was Houston because I signed a 3-year contract with the Houston Rockets, and I couldn't be cut. It was a pure, no-cut contract. And so in the beginning of my career, I wasn't played right, especially when I played in Cincinnati. I played like 1 minute a game. And it was something I'll never forget. That's what I told you. I had a special secret, and the secret is that I never got over the 1 or 2 minutes a game I played in Cincinnati. Something you just don't forget, because I'm pretty competitive. I think a lot, but even to this day, I think about what could have been if they would have let me just, play. Because we had Oscar, we had Jerry Lucas, we could have won the championship.
Great
but
players.
The coach just never played me. And I don't know to this day why. I suspect why, because he was a coach of Oscar and the starting center, Connie Durking and Jerry Lucas. Ed Jucker was a coach for Oscar and Connie Durking. And I guess he was trying to protect Connie Durking, who was a starting center for the Cincinnati Royals. They didn't want me to play.
Did they draft you as a number 5 pick, or was that Milwaukee?
No, that was Cincinnati.
Gosh.
But when I got there, they wouldn't play me. So even though I only averaged 9 points and 9 rebounds a game in my career, that's misleading because I started very low on the bottom because they would put me in a minute, take me out, put me in for 1 minute, take me out. And that went on for almost 4 months. So I started average-wise way in the basement, in the cellar.
Interesting that as a number 5 pick, they weren't playing you that much. Zaid, you mentioned this a couple minutes ago. As we know, Spencer Haywood, your friend and former teammate, went to the U.S. Supreme Court to fight for the rights of players to play rather than having to wait 4 years after graduating from high school. Now, I read in your book, Zaid, that you came close to raising that issue and being a litigant in a case regarding the right to decide not to play for a team.
It was
a flood issue.
Yeah, it was like a Kurt Flood issue because Cincinnati drafted me. They got rid of me. I went to Milwaukee. I got to Milwaukee. They got rid of me in Milwaukee, and the only reason they got rid of me was because it was politics. So I got kind of when I was in Milwaukee and when they let me go, I told them I wasn't going to the Sonics. I was I couldn't I was going to take it to the Supreme Court like pretty much like Spencer, but I was talked out of it by my mother.
And it's interesting, Zaid, that you ended up having a good career in Seattle and you ended up settling in Seattle. So there's a little bit of an irony there as well.
It is an irony, and I love Seattle. Well, obviously, I'm here, and I've been here for quite a while.
Paul Schneiderman on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with Zaid Abdul-Aziz. Zaid, in 1973, you made a decision to convert to Islam. Can you share with us a little about what went on in your decision to?
Yeah, what happened? One day I was playing with the Milwaukee Bucks, and Kareem came over to me. I was a Christian. I had a cross on, a gold cross. I'll never forget it. Kareem came over to me, and he looked at my cross and he touched it. He said, "What is that?" I said, "That's my cross." And then he said, "Okay," and he just walked away. So when he said okay, it was okay, and I went, "Wow." Then I went, "Okay, I'm a Christian, but I really don't know anything about my religion." So I went to the Milwaukee Library. I got a Bhagavad Gita, I got a Quran, I got a Torah, and I got a Bible. And I said, whatever I find to be true, I'm gonna accept it. And I found the Quran to be very enlightening and a very, very good book, great book.
And Zaid, did you find it difficult at all in your playing days to be a practicing Muslim and Muslim athlete?
Yes, and it began when I was playing for the Houston Rockets, and I was fasting in Ramadan, and I came out with a vitamin deficiency because we were having two-a-days. That means we would practice 10 o'clock in the morning, come back and play 4 o'clock in the afternoon, have practice at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was doing that during Ramadan, and I got a vitamin deficiency, and I got sick. So in my confusion, I went to Ray Patterson, the general manager of the president of the Houston Rockets, and I told him I quit. I don't want to play basketball anymore. So he said, "Is that what you want?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't want to play." So what I was doing, I was suffering from a vitamin deficiency, and what I was telling him really wasn't what I wanted to do. I just wanted to take some time off. So my dad called me and he said it was on the Today Show that I quit. I quit the team, and my dad said, "Go back on the team." So the next day I went back to Ray Patterson. I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't. I want to continue, but the damage had already been done."
But you did return to the squad.
Yeah, I did return, but I never became a starting center again in the league.
Interesting.
It was a stigma that followed me the rest of my career.
Zaid, as we know, since 9/11, there's been some prejudice and misconceptions about Islam. What can you share, Zaid? I know you don't claim to be a scholar, religious scholar. What can you share? What are some things that people don't know about Islam?
Well, I mean, the concept of libraries. A library is something that was from the Arab world. Libraries that we go to today, they read. And the main thing I have to say is, we can't condemn any religion for the acts of one or two people.
For sure.
For instance, if I go back to the Oklahoma City bombing on Timothy McVeigh, Timothy McVeigh was a Christian, but I can't blame the religion of Christianity for terrorism if it was created by if it was done by one man. Or all religions are like that. You have good people, you have bad people in all religions.
Absolutely.
So I just come to that realization. You can't blame something. If a person does something bad, or is a terrorist, that's his problem.
Like the way you broke it down, Zaid. Zaid, Laura Ingraham of Fox News recently made some comments that LeBron James should just dribble and shut up. What is your take on this Fox News commentary saying that an NBA player basically should not talk about politics?
Well, people, we vote, and every American has a right to say what they feel like saying, even if they're not, expert in it. So LeBron came, by saying just dribble, it means like he has no right to say anything because he's just a basketball player, period. But LeBron is a dad. He's a father. A lot of people love him, and he's a credit to the NBA. He came out from high school, and he's doing a lot of good things. He's a mentor to all people.
Zaid, I'll share some with you, and I put you in this group. I've known some professional athletes over the years and college athletes. And some of the athletes that I've known, you included, are some of the most interesting, complex, thoughtful people I know. And when I was personally offended by it, when you hear a national news commentator basically saying that a basketball player should shut up, I kind of took it like as a very shallow comment.
Oh, well, it's obvious. I mean, so that comment alone kind of testifies to what it is.
I try not to get my personal opinions too much into this show, but Miss Ingram's comments are going to get a response from me as well.
Well, I applaud you for that, Paul.
Absolutely. Zaid, there was an interesting story, and I know your experience at Iowa State was a little bit complex, but you went back years ago and had your number retired, and you mentioned in your book that it was kind of therapeutic, wasn't it?
It was very therapeutic because me and I would say we had some issues because my friend Willie Majul was, I won't go into details, but my friend was killed. He was murdered right there in Ames, Iowa, and I never forget that. So even me and Iowa State, we had some issues about that situation with Willie being murdered. So I'll let you read the book to find out what really happened.
Yeah, no, I remember reading it in the book, and like I said, I'm being kind of careful to make sure I don't give away your whole interesting book. Zaid, when you play in the NBA, I know you play with Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, some great players. Who are a couple players that you play with that you think really stood out in their talents?
Well, this is I always the toughest player I had played against. What was his name? Zelmo Beatty. Zelmo used to give me a hard time.
Good player.
Yeah, very good player, and he would just blanket me the whole game. I just couldn't move, and I think he was probably the toughest defensive player I ever played against. And what's the name of the red hair guy I forgot his name.
Bill Walton?
No, not Bill Walton. I forgot his name, but he was also good. I'm sure he's going to be happy when I see him. I'm going to tell him, he was really the way he played. I can't remember. I wish I could remember his name. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll get back to it later. Zaid, we're about wrapping up here, and we only have about a minute left. And I know you're working on a children's book right now, but tell us what's in the future for Zaid Abdul-Aziz.
Well, what these kids are very important to me. I have 6 of my own, so I got like 8 grandkids. So anyway, when I do a lot of speaking, I go to Amazon. I go to Barnes and Noble, and I go to different venues to promote my book. Most of the kids all want to become NBA basketball players, and I can't tell them, but it's going to be hard to do that. So what I try to instill in them or tell them is you want to become an NBA basketball player, but have a backup plan.
No doubt.
What do you have as a backup plan? And I go, okay, look, my backup plan is I'm a writer. I'm an author. When I go around the country, people say I'm an author. That's my backup plan. So each one of you have to have a backup plan. So I wrote a little book it's about 10 pages, 12 pages on having a backup plan. And it's really good for kids.
Zaid, thank you so much for coming on Sports and Stuff. I hope to have you back one day.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks a lot.
I really
I got the name. I'm sorry. Dennis Autry.
Dennis Autry.
Yeah, he gave me fits. Dennis Autry.
Tall guy.
Yeah, he's about my size, 6'9", 6'10", but he gave me fits.
Former Sonic, too.
Former Sonic, yes.
Thanks, Zaid.
Thank you.